This is the Ancient and Medieval History Lecture for Tuesday, the 5th of April, 2022, and some basic housekeeping. Next year, assuming that you're going to be here at Charter and they're on the normal program, you will be taking European history. I teach 3 sections of honors. Mr. Burfind will be taking on a new section of AP. This is because I hate AP, and AP hates me. Understand there are limited spots in AP. If you are interested, Mr. Burfind is a very good teacher. You'll get a lot out of it with him. If you are not in AP, you're back with me for one more year. And that'll be a good thing, because it is my calling to teach this stuff. And so you will get my version of the European history class, and we'll do a lot of the similar types of work that we do this year. So bear that in mind as you do your sign-ups. We have the new seating chart, which we were told about yesterday, and hopefully you're comfortable where you are, because that's pretty much where you're going to be unless I have to move you for the rest of the year. And yesterday we sort of reviewed how we got here and brought us close to the Dark Ages, which is the first of 3 phases of medieval history. The Dark Ages is a term coined in the Renaissance, the period at the earliest period of modern history. And what it refers to is the concept of knowledge as enlightenment. Literally enlightenment. It's almost a Zoroastrian or Manichaean idea that light is good and dark is evil, and knowledge being good and useful, unless we turn it to evil, is a good thing. Therefore, to be enlightened is to be knowledgeable. All of that knowledge that the ancient world had been building since the time of Menes unifying Upper and Lower Egypt, and Abraham in Sumer, had been collected in the Greek and Roman world. There was the library at Alexandria. And in the West, it dies. It's a dark age. It is not possible in the West to earn a living using or practicing skills that depend upon a deep understanding of the ancient knowledge. It's just not, unless you're inside a monastery. So the church is going to keep knowledge alive in Western Europe in seed form. In seed form. Here's a seed. You get it from inside an apple. Apple seed. You can eat it, but it's like eating a little piece of wood. It's not going to give you much nutrition. It might give you a stomachache, because apple seeds are not among the most edible and digestible things to human beings. Right now, that apple seed is practically nothing. It's as close to nothing as you're going to find in the world of food. But plant that seed, give it a few years of good watering and nutritious soil with plenty of sunlight, somebody to take care of the weeds, somebody to help the tree grow right, and that tree can provide food for generations. The seed is potential. It's not something that exists much in the present, but it is the potential for things to come. All of you have heard about your potential. I'm sure of it, because I heard about my potential growing up. It's something that parents and relatives talk about. If you've got potential, there's nothing in the world sadder than wasted potential. There's nothing more tragic than somebody who has every possibility of doing something wondrous and they squander it. And if there is one lesson that good parents teach their children, It is not to waste the potential that you have. It is to find something to do with that interests you, that excites you, that gives you a sense of satisfaction, that can give your life meaning, so that you are not merely a waste of space. Knowledge is going to be kept alive in Western Europe in seed form. But that means it's not going to illuminate the current day. That is the darkness of the Dark Ages. The philosophies and politics, ideologies, and art, the sense of scale and scope to how big the world is, the understandings of science, of Eratosthenes, and the eureka of, oh God, what's his name? Takes a bath. Archimedes, thank you. All that stuff. Bye-bye. There it goes. It's gone. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So the Dark Ages are the place and time where our society is born. And our society gets to be born because the previous society died. It's like people who think about immortality. Oh, wouldn't it be great if people could live forever or much longer? No. If you talk to a Buddhist who's not from America, who understands Buddhism, who doesn't think it's cool, dude, the kind of Buddhist that when he meditates has an elder sensei around with a stick, so that if you even slouch or drift off while you're meditating, bam, that's Buddhism. Okay, that's Buddhism in Asia. That's hardcore Buddhism. It's about discipline. Reincarnation is not a blessing. California Buddhists, oh yeah, man, I get to do it all again. Asians understand. You are condemned to do it all again and again and again. You don't want to endlessly reincarnate as you are. What you want to do is learn what you can from this life as a soul and move up the chain of being towards being a cow or a diva, which is not an egomaniacal singer. Okay, it's a Hindu angel. Up towards unity with the gods. That's your goal. Your goal is not the endless recapitulation of puberty and adolescence and pimples and teenage angst and all the rest that goes along with life. Do it once, get what you need to out of it, move on. That's the idea. So, just as reincarnation is a curse, immortality. You live forever. So where's the significance in life? Where's the need to do things on a timetable? Where's the desperation? Where is that passion that drives us to do great things, terrible things? Well, it's not there, because you're just hanging around. And if you lived for 1,000 years, you're just hanging around. There's no need to hurry. You've always got mañana. You've always got tomorrow. The fact that we live for a time and then die is something that, after a while, does make an impression on people, and it inspires them to work hard and do wonderful things or terrible things. Plus, what about the people ahead of you? You know, I've heard your generation, or people a little older than you, use the expression, okay, boomer, as an expression of, fine, just jabber on, old man, old woman, old Karen, old Chad, because soon you're going to be gone. Well, I'm not a boomer. I was born in 65. If anything, if I haven't, my generation has a name, it's Gen X, but I don't really fit into that either. But I can tell you, you have no idea what it's like to be behind the boomers for your entire freaking life. Okay? I have been, and these people don't let go. It's not like, oh, they retire at 65. No, it's a new life. You know, it's not an accident that we have a boomer as president, and a boomer is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and they are older than dirt because they don't want to let go. There comes a point where it is a good thing for the world and for young people that old people wither, and die. That is part of our natural thing. We're born, we live, we die. And in dying, we make room for other people to do different things, their own stuff. If you keep holding on, decade after decade after decade, you are stifling those who are coming. So in any event, the idea that Rome, with all of its glories, is dead does provide an opportunity for our civilization to be born. But it is called the Dark Ages because the light, the enlightenment of all that ancient knowledge is gone for a while. And instead, it's barbarians who are like street biker gangs on horseback. They run everything. And you farm, and you sleep, and you farm, and you sleep, and you pay your taxes, and you farm, and you sleep. And hopefully the barbarians don't decide to have fun by destroying your village, just for the ha-has. Hopefully, you'll be able to live in some kind of peace. And there's the church, which gives you the hope of heaven, which is a good thing when life is hell. But the concept of Dark Ages is rooted in the idea that the ancient knowledge is gone. But there are going to be a few points of light in this darkness. The first point of light I've told you about, that's the Christian church in the West, what becomes the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant churches in the West. Because the Christian church in the West, through its churches and monasteries, especially monasteries, is going to gather books and keep that knowledge alive in seed form. We're going to talk about how they do that. That's one of the lights in the darkness. Another light is the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire doesn't fall. It doesn't have a dark age. It is the Eastern Roman Empire. Now, the Byzantines speak Greek, not Latin. After a while, Latin just, becomes a language that only fancy people use. The language of everyday life for kings and paupers is Greek. That's okay, because Greek had been the language of culture before Rome, and it had remained the language in the East during Rome. So the Byzantines keep knowledge alive. But the Byzantines, because they're still Roman, have this legacy hanging over them. They're still tired. They're still old. They still have trouble boosting their population numbers. They have all the downside of the late Roman Empire continued. And so there are certain primitive life forms that are weird. And one of those weird primitive life forms is a flatworm. So you have a flatworm. It's not a normal worm, not a worm like nightcrawler that you use on a fish hook to catch the fishies. It's a flatworm. It's much more primitive than that. If a flatworm gets cut in half, which you shouldn't do because mangling animals is the first sign that you might become a psycho killer. Don't do that. Don't go down that road. It's a bad road. But if a scientist, because scientists are allowed to do stuff like this without being called psychopaths, if you're a scientist and you cut a flatworm in half, what you will notice with your science knowledge, is you got to wear a white coat, otherwise it doesn't count. It's like a magic coat of knowledge, plus 2 intelligence. Is both halves of the worm will crawl off and start regenerating. So you have one flatworm, now you have 2 flatworms, and you have 4 flatworms. You got to wait until they grow, of course. You can't just, constantly bisect them and expect them to live. Sooner or later, you're going to kill them. But a flatworm is so primitive that if you literally cut it in half, both halves will live, and they'll grow the other half back. That would be like if human beings were able to regenerate like magical trolls. You cut somebody's foot off by accident. Whoops, sorry about that, Stompy. And the foot grows a new person. That's creepy. Okay, we don't do that because we're highly complex. But anyway, that's, yeah. And we don't grow new feet, by the way, at least not yet. I'm sure some genetic scientist someday, yes, let's make people grow new feet. Like chicken legs. Ah! You get claws, or you got flippers. No, that's not.
So like Michael Phelps.
Yeah. Special guy. Special drugs. So, the the third light of civilization is the Islamic Arabs, and we'll talk about that. So, the subject of today and tomorrow is the Byzantine Empire. Their heritage, they are Romans. In fact, they don't call themselves Byzantines. We do. They call themselves Romans. We are Romani. Um, the geography of the Eastern Empire, well, let's look at the city of Constantinople. Constantinople is built on a peninsula called the Golden Horn. And it looks sort of like a horn from the top, from above, which nobody can see because you couldn't fly that yet. But you build a series of walls, and there were actually 3 or 4 walls eventually that were built along the landward side. And remember, these walls couldn't be breached. They were not breached until the Turks in 1453 used heavy cannons to blast the walls apart. These were good walls. For the age of gunpowder, they worked. And they also, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Eastern Romans, built walls along the coast. And they had these fortified artificial harbors that they built around. So they could have ships that would go out of the harbor fortifications. A gate would open, there they'd go, and then it would close again. So if the enemy came by land, they'd be hitting a number of walls, which would stop them until they get cannoned. If the enemy came by sea, they would hit walls, which would stop them. The Byzantines would also do things like extend a chain across the Bosphorus, which is the strait that separates the Black Sea from the Sea of Marmara. And if the enemy came in with ships, the chain would block them. And if they tried to send men off the ships to get rid of the chain, then the Byzantines could attack them. So this is a big area. This is a lot of space. And the city of Constantinople was mostly over here. So this area would be future city. It was used for some suburban development. It was also used to grow emergency food. So that if there was a siege, you would at least have some things that you didn't have to ship in. This is a good location. Constantine was very smart. Rome, it became capital of the world through a historical process. It evolved to be. It wasn't picked to be the center of the world. Constantinople was picked to be the center of the world. And it was chosen well. Very defensible, lots of fresh water, lots of opportunities for food to ship things in. This was built from the ground up to be an imperial capital. And its location on the edge of Europe, right next to Asia, gives it a good centrality in the location. Because the Byzantine Empire basically has 3 regions that are important to it. I guess I can use this map. Since I'm past Rome, I might as well. Okay, so here's Constantinople. And one region is the Balkans. The Balkan Peninsula is dominated by the Balkan mountain range. And it includes basically this area of what's today Turkey and Europe, Bulgaria, Greece, Macedonia, Serbia. This area here, it's the area of the middle and lower Danube, south to the Ionian Sea, or the Adriatic Sea, the Ionian Sea, and the Aegean Sea. So this is a big region that the Byzantines controlled for much of their history, the Balkans. And the Danube and the mountains together make a good defensible frontier from many attacks coming from the north. That's one of the reasons why they hold it for so long. The second region is Anatolia, what used to be called Asia Minor. Anatolia today is basically Turkey. And it's this area here between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea and the Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara, this area over here. Now, it has a central plateau surrounded by mountains. And the most important mountains are right along this angle of this axis here. They're called the Taurus Mountains. And you can see them very well on this map here. You got the Taurus Mountains. And they protect the south and eastern borders of Anatolia. And the Taurus Mountains are actually a pretty good barrier. They're steep, they don't have many passes through them. There's one set of passes. And that set of passes that's through the Taurus Mountains, they're called the Kilikian Gates, because this area used to be called Kilikia, with C's, not K's. So you have the Kilikian Gates, which is the best way through the Taurus Mountains. And what the Byzantines would do is they would hold, even when they had trouble beyond Anatolia, they would hold the Taurus Mountains line by fortifying the Kilikian Gates and the rest of the mountains, so that nobody could easily move from Syria or Iraq into Anatolia. Can't do it, because the Byzantines have fortified this mountainous frontier. It's a good frontier, and it holds for centuries. So that's the second region. The third region of the Byzantine Empire is something they hold on to for a few hundred years. It's Syria and Judea, Sinai Peninsula, Egypt, Cyrenaica, and basically this area here of Northeast Africa and Southwest Asia. So the old Roman lands east and south of the southeast of the Mediterranean Sea. And this area is very wealthy. It includes Egypt, which is the best farmland in the known world. But the Persians are constantly struggling against the Byzantines, Sasanian Persians or the Sassanids. And ultimately, when the Arabs come, they're going to take all this from Byzantium to Sweden. And the Taurus Mountains border will become very important then. So this area of Eastern Europe here, Constantinople, the Balkans, Anatolia, and the southeastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea are the regions that are at the heart of the Byzantine Empire. Okay. Why is this important to us? We are not Greeks. We are not Romans. We are descendants of Greeks and Romans. So why does it matter so much that the Byzantine Empire exists? The biggest reason is that the Byzantine Empire acts as a shield. When the Arabs come surging out of the Arabian Peninsula, they're going to take over the Persian Empire in less time than it took Alexander to, which is quick. And then they're going to go after Christendom. I mean, they took Zoroastrians out. It's now time for those Christians. Hey, Christians, turn the other cheek. But even though the Muslims are going to take Syria and Judea, Egypt, and the rest of North Africa's coast, they try and try and try and try and try, and they fail to break through the Taurus Mountain line, break through the Kilikian Gates. Here's why that's important. The heart of Islamic power is in Mesopotamia and Arabia and basically the Near East. That's the center of their power. Mecca's right down around here somewhere. So if the Muslims, if the Islamic armies of Muhammad's descendants were able to break through the Kilikian Gates, they'd go right for Europe with a very strong thrust across the border between Asia and Europe and up along the Danube, and that would be a very, very strong attack because it's very closely connected to the heart of their power. But because Byzantium holds, because it's a shield, they instead have to do a much longer reach-around attack, like trying to reach into a vending machine to steal a bag of chips or a can of Coke. not that you would ever do that because you're good people, but I knew some bad people back in the day. And also, vending machines have gotten much harder to steal from. But you can used to reach in and sort of go around and pop, and maybe you could get yourself a free meal or a permanent injury. What the Muslim armies finally do is they do a reach around attack from the heart of their power along the North African coast up through Spain into France. And when the attack finally comes, it is much weaker than the direct attack through Byzantium would have been. Had Byzantium fallen, the shield between us and the strength of the Islamic world would have been gone. And it's entirely possible there would be no Christian civilization, that we'd be part of the Islamic world. Yes?
This is kind of random, but I was just walking by a vending machine one time.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a guy that basically just grabbed the vending machine and just started shaking it as hard as he could, and then he literally flipped it over. He picked it up and
did it work?
Yeah, and it did. And at least 15 bags of chips came out. It was just shaking.
Okay, well at least the criminal thief Scuzzbucket had to work for it. I mean, at least he had to do that. I mean, he risked getting a hernia.
It was 300 pounds. He just squatted, picked it up, and just started shaking it.
Be strong from eating stolen chips. I'll tell you, it's good. This is one of the jobs I can't have: designing vending machine security systems. Because I would have an electrical generator in there, and if somebody, tipped it beyond a certain point, it zapped them with a lethal dose of electricity. Oh, you want to kill people for stealing?
Yes.
Well, it'll stop them from stealing, won't it? Yeah, it will. Well, you see one guy go and become a crispy critter. No one else is going to steal from you. He's so evil. Again, they won't let me have that job.
There's also a vending machine that was just filled with plates.
With plates?
Oh yeah.
Glass plates. It's they're just there, and so you put in $1, and a plate just starts coming out and just shatters.
What is this, for stress? You're I want to break some stuff, but I don't feel like hurting my hands. Beep, beep, take that.
I don't know.
I've never heard of that. The weirdest vending machines I heard of was, and I think the Germans still have them, is they have beer vending machines.
Yeah.
Because the drinking age there is, I think, 16, and anyone with a few coins or a credit card can just, slurp up some beer. Because it's Germany. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Byzantines are important to us as a shield. Okay. Now, there are some basic things that you want to know about them. There are ancient recipes and inventions that we no longer have access to. I've already told you about Roman concrete. The Romans built a kind of concrete that's still around. Okay, when we build things with concrete 50, 100 years later, they look like something melted them. Because, there's acid rain. No, it's the fact that our concrete stinks compared to what the Romans were able to do. We don't know how they did it, but they made this sort of liquefied rock that when it hardened, really hardened well. And modern chemistry can't reproduce it. Oh, we're so smart. We can do genetics. Yeah, you can't recreate Roman concrete. Well, another one of those things is a liquid, sticky fire substance called Greek fire. We know it involves naphtha. But what Greek fire is, it's basically primitive napalm. It's not napalm, because okay, we'll start. Today, we have napalm. Napalm is gelatinized gasoline. What you do is you take gasoline and you add powdered Tide to it. It's some kind of chemical that's in most old powdered laundry detergents. And what that powder does is it gelatinizes the gasoline. So instead of having liquid gas, you've got this sticky jello gas. Now, we developed napalm near the end of World War II. We used it for incendiary attacks, for firebombing of cities like Dresden and Tokyo, which actually killed more people than the atom bombs. You don't need atom bombs to wipe out cities. You just need napalm and a complete willingness to use it. Well, the horrible thing about napalm, and pretty much everything is unless you're the one dropping it, is imagine something coming from the sky that splurts sticky gel on you, but the gel is on fire. And you can't get it off because it adheres to everything it touches. Napalm is something that we use in warfare. and it is nasty stuff, but it's useful. If you have Viet Cong occupying an area of jungle, napalm it, and that area of jungle and the VC are going to be gone. Um, well, the Greeks don't have gelatinized gasoline. It's not quite as good as that. But they have a mixture of tar and naphtha and other things, which basically makes a semi-liquid sticky substance. And on their warships and on certain land artillery pieces, what they do is they have tanks of this stuff, this Greek fire. And with a pump, they start pumping it out. And between the nozzle that shoots out the Greek fire and the target is a torch. So it goes and lands on the target. And it's this tar-like substance. Now, imagine gum on a hot tarmac in the summertime. Okay, you're walking along the sidewalk or the street, and you see this pink splot, and it used to be gum of some kind. And if you accidentally step on it, what happens? It sticks to your shoes. And it's really sticky. If it's the right kind of gum and the right type of temperature, you're going to basically, and you don't want to ever get it in your hair. I got it in my hair once in a while. In any event, the idea of something sticky that you can't get off is bad enough. But Greek fire, it's burning. It's like napalm in that sense. So the Greeks had this secret weapon that nobody else had. And they managed to keep the secret. The Arabs didn't get it, the Mongols didn't get it, the Turks didn't get it, nobody got it. This is a secret that they took with them. But if you go up against a Byzantine battle fleet, one of the things you're going to have to deal with is not only the ramming and not only the catapults and not only the ballistae, but when you get close enough, your ships get, which are made of wood and use canvas sails, by the way, your ships are going to get splattered with liquid fire that sticks to everything. So Greek fire is one of those weapons that really, really makes the Byzantines much stronger than they otherwise would be. Another thing that the Byzantines have after a while is eventually the Scandinavians that we call Vikings, which means raiders, go up the rivers of Russia and down the rivers of Ukraine into the Black Sea, and some Vikings show up in Constantinople. And it's like, if you've ever played Mass Effect, imagine being on a barbarian frontier world and you show up and suddenly you're at the Citadel in the Presidium. And it's this beautiful white city filled with luxuries, and it's like you're suddenly not on Earth anymore, you're in heaven. So just like Caligula had a guard of Germans who became his bodyguard, eventually the Byzantine emperors get a Varangian guard. These Varangian guards, and the spelling is V-A-R-I-N-G-I-A-N. Varangian guard, V-A-R-I-N-G-I-A-N. And that's a hint it'll be on the quiz or test. The Varangian guard are a guard of Swedish Vikings that work for the Byzantine emperor. So, it's pretty unexpected. You walk into the Byzantine court, you got a bunch of Greeks wearing silk skirts, and all of a sudden these scary, scary Swedes show up. We guard the emperor. Don't mess with them. They're Vikings. Okay, they're about half a person taller than everyone else around, because Vikings had a high-protein diet, and they were Swedish and Norwegian. Mostly these guys were Swedes. So they were big. Okay. Now, I'm going to shift over and use what I think are some fun movies. Since you're sitting in Dan's spot, Summer, can you shut the fan off and close the shade behind you? And Emma, would you turn the dial on that shade over there? It's still broken, but you'll close the slats if you do. And we are going to learn about the most important Byzantine emperor and empress, the Emperor Justinian and the Empress Theodora. We'll start learning about them now. See ya.